Welcome, everyone, to one of our webinars for New Brunswick Climate Change and Climate and Renewable Energy Week, brought to you by the New Brunswick Trust Fund and Environmental Trust Fund, and also Green Investment Fund of Mount Allison Students Union. So today we have the illustrious Briana Cowie, who is the Executive Director of the Eastern Charlotte Waterways Project, as well as today is talking about Project Village. And I have the great honor of having been the former neighbor of Briana back when she was at Mount A. And from there went to Memorial for environmental policy as well. And even when in community here, was working a lot with the Sackville Refugee Coalition, as well as the Indigenous Support Group. And so I'm excited to see where things have gone, but also to see many of the examples of what rural sustainability can look like that they're being exemplars of in Southwestern New Brunswick. So without further ado, here is Briana Cowie. And I just want to also note that here at EOS, we're on the unceded and unsurrendered territories of the Mi'kmaq people. And I also just want to let everyone know, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. This is being recorded for future use. If you want me to speak on your behalf, feel free to put it in the chat, and also raise your hand if you have questions. Okay, go right ahead.
Wonderful. Thanks, Julia. Yes, I was a former Mountie myself, so thank you for that kind introduction. I'm Briana. I'm the Executive Director of ECW. We're an environmental nonprofit located in Blacks Harbor, New Brunswick, which is on the traditional unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Beskodemegatis First Nation and the Wolastoqey people. So I'm really grateful to have an opportunity to come and talk to everyone at Care Week. I had attended the Care Week actually a couple of years back, and I know it's always a wonderful opportunity for individuals to go out and learn about climate change. Myself, I started here at ECW doing climate change program, but today I'm specifically here to talk about Project Village, which is a new rural sustainable community development project that ECW launched in 2021. And I want to give a little bit of like a full landscaped view of what that means, how we got there and where we are now and where we're going to. So bear with me. I have got a presentation. It actually just deleted 15 minutes before we came on. So I threw it all back together again. And so my apologies if it's not as formatted. Hopefully it is, but we'll see. Okay, so assuming that everybody can see that. Okay, so I'm here to talk mostly about how prosperous rural communities actually create a prosperous New Brunswick as a whole, as a province. So Eastern Charlotte Waterways was created in 1993 as part of the ACAP program, which is the Atlantic Coastal Action Program. It came out of Environment Climate Change Canada, really started to tackle initially marine-based projects. Since that time, we've expanded and we've done all kinds of different things. So mostly in freshwater ecosystems, in our rivers down here in Southwest New Brunswick, working with the Beskodemegatis First Nations. We do marine projects related to underwater noise monitoring, all kinds of different fisheries assessment for baselines in the marine protected area. And myself, we were doing the climate change program as well, where we created a comprehensive regional climate adaptation plan with our partners at the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission, many different government departments and service providers. And we launched in 2020, timelines are always so crooked nowadays with COVID, but we launched that in 2020, the Regional Climate Adaptation Plan, and a climate hub that looked at risks, vulnerabilities. It's called swmbclimate.ca, and that's where all of our climate change materials came from. But during those conversations where we would go out and we'd engage with stakeholders, it was very evident that in those conversations around adaptation options or building more resilient communities, however we define that, there were lots of rural challenges that sort of prohibited individuals to focus their attention to do that, or to be able to like fully prepare and adapt for climate change. So up from that, many conversations with our board of directors, with community members, directly informed by provincial strategies, regional strategies. So for instance, I think of the E6 Overcoming Poverty together report. So that kind of outlines a little bit of what the data-driven approach of Project Village is, as well as the community health needs assessments we get from Horizon Health. We also used regional transportation plans for our regional transportation project that I'll get into called Project Village Car Share. We use food security reports from Vibrant Community Charlotte County, which is a poverty reduction group here in Charlotte County, to really feed every idea and creation of the plan we had around what Project Village represented was really going to be embedded in rural-based driven data and our community consultations and stakeholder engagement that we participate in actively as an organization. So today I just want to talk about overall our vision for Blacks Harbor and for Southwest New Brunswick as a whole. This is the beautiful Blacks Harbor. A little bit of our success story to date as ECW and Project Village. And then what we believe with our community is the formula for sustainable community growth. So I'm going to talk about affordable housing, transportation, local economies, and job growth, and less a little bit about recreation.
Briana, can I ask a question right at the beginning here? Just because I want to know this, the sequence or the transition that you made from an environmentally focused group towards more of a holistic community approach, where you got into economics and reading the ESIC report. How did that happen? And if you're going to go into it later, I'm fine. Before you get into the detail of what you're doing, which is admirable, I don't know how you made that transition.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Eric. So myself, I'm a board member of the the Charlotte County Multicultural Association, Vibrant Community Charlotte County. I sat on a lot of committees at both municipal and regional levels. And a lot of the topic that at that time I was trying to understand is how to apply a climate lens to things like land use planning, affordable housing, transportation, all of these community-based issues that we're having. And we haven't, so I would be careful to say that we haven't navigated away from being an environmental nonprofit. I think that the concept of environmental ecosystem sort of management has to be embedded in the understanding of transformational systems change. And those are a lot of words, but essentially what I mean by that is that the only way we can really work together to have a sound environment that's well managed by our region and our community is if we address some of those root issues related to rural community development and economic development as a core. Mm-hmm. And from a lot of that engagement that we had done, reading those reports, it really began to inform us that a lot of the issues were related to things like those four areas that I just highlighted: housing and transportation. And I will get into a little bit of a snag we did hit in regards to the housing piece specifically as a nonprofit, because we are a registered charity. So we have to maintain our ability to work within our charitable purposes and mandate. So I will explain a little bit of the hiccup that came through with that. But ultimately, for us, our charitable purposes are very much embedded in the concept of sustainable community development, not necessarily just environmental monitoring and management, but also implementation. And I think that that is where we start seeing this climate change adaptation plan is realistically being implemented through the creation of some of these community-based projects. But that's a great question because lots of people get to me. And this is something that's been in discussion at the organization level for, oh man, 2019, so a couple of years now. Okay, so basically what I want to talk about is Project Village is, like I just said, a full spectrum approach to sustainable community development. So what does that mean? Well, we have basic goals as a community. We want to create a vibrant, abundant, and resilient Blacks Harbor, and that will ultimately contribute to a prosperous New Brunswick. How do we think we're going to do that? So, like I said, a lot of the issues as to why Blacks Harbor hasn't necessarily grown and increased in its population is related to issues where those social services or those community services aren't being upheld. So we can't increase the population of Blacks Harbor and build out a more vibrant population for the people who live here currently if we don't give them access to those community supports that they need, things like affordable housing, things like food security, and things like transportation. So that's the service delivery model and pathways. So we want to increase affordable housing. We want to improve the transportation systems through innovation design and increase our food security year round. And we also want to increase here in the community wage secure jobs that'll attract talent, skilled employees, and then also ones that will provide appropriate wages for individuals who live in the community already. And of course, a safe haven for newcomers, because we see a lot of newcomer population. So for us as an organization, I don't think a lot of people know this about ECW, but we are a little bit of an underdog, but we also have really great asset abilities, and a lot of the organization, the legacy of executive directors who came before me, I was really fortunate to inherit something that was very viable, very financially well structured. And it was very clear through a lot of those conversations that we wanted to make sure that we were taking some of that ability and that financial wellness and reinserting it back into the community. So once we had hit that situation or that level, we then started to work with our board of directors and other members of the community to kind of start identifying assets in the community that we can use to kind of implement our projects. So we have 10 permanent employees. I'm very proud of the fact that we pay a wage that's well above the cost of living as put out by the Human Development Council. And median age is quite young. We're very gender diverse. We've got newcomers, all kinds of different staff. We have lots of projects on the go here. I can't even talk about them from an aquatics perspective or from our lab perspective, because I do want to just talk about Project Village today, but we are really fortunate to have really, really good partnerships with lots of different community groups, service providers, government departments, universities, you name it. So what is Project Village? So Project Village basically wanted to look at creating foundational pillars around sustainable community development. So these were all designed, and again, I apologize, I'm seeing the formatting is coming out now from when I was like hurriedly reposting or recopying things. So anyway, so basically it was 4 foundational pillars: community, environment, governance, and economy. And those are the 4 foundational pillars that kind of guide the work we do. So that's a really important part when you think about community and governance. It's a flat governance structure. There's no direct authority here that's creating what Project Village is meant to be on the ground. Myself, I work with my board of directors on it and with my community group in consultation. I am in constant dialogue with our other nonprofits in the area, government departments, et cetera. So we have 4 work streams. The ones I really want to highlight today is transportation and food. I will touch upon shelter. It's a bit of a unique case, so I'll let you know kind of what happened there. And aquaculture, admittedly, is the one that's kind of on the back burner currently. So transportation in our particular community, we know that it accounts for about 25.8% of New Brunswick's greenhouse gas emissions. In Blacks Harbor and in Southwest New Brunswick, I previously sat on the Southwest Transit Authority board since 2018, and there was an integrated public transportation study that took place at that time by Dillon Consulting, and we don't have any public transportation services. So there's no fixed route. There was previously a fixed route pilot project that did do quite well in some ways, but it's very difficult for rural communities that are very geographically dispersed to be able to have that direct access to that route. So we have a wonderful organization called Charlotte County Dial-A-Ride, and it's a volunteer driving group that provides between 6,000 and 8,000 community drives annually for members who require access to their medical appointments or groceries or et cetera. But they only have so much capacity as well. So we don't necessarily see ourselves, and this is really pivotal, we don't see ourselves as the solution. It's a part of a greater network that needs to be built out to create solutions. So Charlotte Dial-A-Ride is the solution to our transportation problem. Project Village Car Share, that I will get into, is also a part of it, but more investment needs to be made around rural transportation infrastructure. So, and the other thing about the car share model in particular is that the large majority of our household income is directed towards car expenses. And we know with the rising cost of living, inflation, that 13.4% that's on the slide there is only going to increase and be able to access, gas and maintenance for the vehicle. And then not only is that 13.4% going to increase, but it will make up a bigger portion of our household expenses, and other parts of our household expenses are also increasing. So what can we do to start alleviating some of those direct expenses per household? So we created something called Project Village Car Share. It was imagined from a design that's already working in the rural communities in Quebec. It's not a new model. We don't want to recreate things that work in other communities. We don't want to create those feasibility studies and all those other things if they're not necessary. So the car share model is based off of something called the Sauvé platform. It was developed, like I said, in Quebec. It's been running there successfully for 8 years. Originally, it was designed as a concept to be a car sharing platform between municipalities and community members of the public. So we sort of redesigned portions of that model into something that works not just for community members in Charlotte County, but also for those nonprofit groups and those community service providers directly. So car sharing is obviously very new. It's not new, but it's new to communities like ours. So it promotes the optimal use of vehicles and cost sharing opportunities with the community. So there are 4 electric vehicles. We have one placed in St. Andrews, one in St. Stephen. It says next, but it's here in Blacks Harbor, and then we just recently launched one on Grand Manan about a month or so ago. And the whole idea is that sharing cars optimizes their runtime and creates a more reliable transportation system. Operational costs for running those vehicles are absorbed by membership fees, so that transportation costs will be reduced for using those services. Formatting, see? Okay, so how do you sign up for it? So basically, it's pretty simple. I'm actually just going to show you our website, because it's probably better, and also it's way more informal. So this is our website. It's projectvillage.ca, and as you can see, it's ECW's Project Village Initiative. So if you go to initiatives, this is our car share program. I'll show you this little great commercial video we did with a local TV broadcaster, CHCO, in a minute. But basically what individuals do is they go here, they register, they do their sign up form. There are a few requirements we have. All of the cars are fully insured, so you don't necessarily require personal insurance, but we like to ask regardless. And then there's a membership plan, a damage protection plan, and of course we do require every individual to have a valid Class 5 driver's license. So once you do this initial intake form, then Zaria, who's our project manager on this, will be in contact with you. She'll provide you with some details. The costs are all on the website and all the frequently asked questions as well. And then basically you're provided a membership package, a user guide, and then just sort of a quick guide. So basically like, this is how it works, this is how you access it, this is how the service goes, and kind of she's really great at it. So she'll walk you through the whole sign up program of it, and then how to make your first booking on the Sauvé platform. So I'll just quickly show this video that'll explain it much better.
It's simple.
I did miss a question, which is there a cost associated for a dial group or car shared model? But I think that Dial a Ride is for Dial a Ride Charlotte County, and I think that that's scaled like many of the rural rides programs in New Brunswick for income.
Yeah, so Dial a Ride has used our vehicles. So we have a program with Dial a Ride specifically to reduce the wear and tear on their volunteer driving volunteer cars. So they're able to access our vehicles. Basically then what they do is they'll charge their regular rate to their clients, and they basically just access our vehicles at a subsidized rate. So they have used ours. But yeah, they're technically 2 different ones. So you can access ours through Dial a Ride, but it's, yeah, so.
And the car share model is separate and has fees associated per hour or per mile?
Yeah, so it has you have a one-time registration fee. Yeah, no worries. So we've subdivided it into 2 things, community and business. We actually just had a few businesses sign up recently, and that's to help offset the cost for the community nonprofits. Basically, it's a base rate and then 12 cents per minute after that. So there is, and I don't know if that if that slide made it over once I had deleted everything. But there is a slide that kind of gives like a rundown of like a typical, like if you were to use it for 2 hours, I think it's $20.80 if you went into like, it was like a 200-kilometer range or something like that.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. All right, I'll just show this.
For the ride, is this a new car? No, it's Charlotte County's new car share service, Project Village Car Share. Really? How does it work? It's simple. Apply for membership, then book your electric vehicle online. You pick up the car and drive it to your appointments to pick up groceries or errands. When you're done, you bring it back to the original parking space. That sounds easy. It is. Just send an email to carshare@projectvillage.ca. Once approved, you'll receive an access card, which acts as your key card to drive. Where are the cars located? I picked this one up at St. Andrews at the arena, but there's other locations in Charlotte County. Is it expensive to use car share? There's discounted rates, there's no fuel or maintenance costs, plus you're helping reduce your own carbon emissions by using electric vehicles. Maybe I can give you a ride next time.
Yeah, so we were able to do that in partnership with our local news organization, CHCO TV. And they did little clips for us, and those have been airing around the county as well. So that's a great opportunity to be able to showcase in a very simple way what the car share model really means. Okay, so from a cost distribution standpoint, because you have to understand how to make these things economical over time. So it's really important to remember that transportation is not a way to make money. So oftentimes you have to create a cost distribution framework that shows that the membership fees will cover the transportation operations fixed costs at a certain uptake point. So at a certain break-even point with the ridership uptake, that helps to cover the systems license, the insurance fees, the car registration, the roadside assistance, the maintenance, and that e-charge membership. So in our model, once we have a certain amount of riderships, then we're able to break even on those costs. And the base fee rates, which are the individual rates every time you access the vehicle in order to use it. And that's that $6.40 plus 12 cents a minute base or user rate. That covers the variable cost of transportation. So that's things like the power consumption, the short-term repairs. So in each of and when you go to register and sign up for the vehicle, your cost for power consumption and the recharge is all included in the cost. So what you pay is exactly what it was on that website. So that's basically in an effort to ensure that individuals know, so long as they have that time put aside for the recharge, that all of that is covered. So you're not necessarily paying for that quote unquote fuel cost. And like I said, here's the damage protection plan is really important as well. So we were able to work out agreements with the insurance companies. It did take some time to find an insurance company that would be willing to kind of go through this. And we had to have a lot of discourse and conversation with them. That one-time registration fee, like I said, is that RFID card that she showed in that video. So that basically acts as a keys for any individual to be able to access the vehicle moving forward. And yeah, so it's been up and running. We had a pilot project in the summer where we had about 9 people specifically use it. And that was really in an effort to take all of the internal policies we had created, the communication platform, how to sign up and register for it, how to pay for it, how to access the car, whether or not we're educating people appropriately around like how to charge the vehicle up, how to be able to use the RFID to access the vehicle, all of that. So we had 9 individuals who used it for the summer months. And then we had intake surveys at the beginning to be like, how do you think this is going to go? And then we had one-on-one conversations with them at the end. And that was able to then take all of their feedback. And we created what we see as the next iteration of the improved model around how the costing will work and how the access points will work. And then we publicly launched in September of last year. And of course, like everything else, because it's a new concept and a new model, there's always going to be that go between new registrations or clients who use it often, and sort of those like opportunities to tweak and improve. I think, is there something in the chat? Oh. Okay.
I would just added some information about the dial-a-ride systems.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for doing that. And we also, we have a direct relationship with Charlotte Dial-a-Ride, so we have them on our website as well, and we have an MOU with them. Oh, and then the one thing I should have mentioned is, in order to make this something that's placed within all the municipalities, we worked with the municipal offices and councils to sign up parking places. So we have parking locations on Grand Manan. Well, and Blacks Harbor is actually at our Freshmart property, which I'm going to get into next about our food security project, and in St. Stephen as well. So we installed signage, and they're right next to the charging infrastructure and the charging stations. So one thing that we've come to realize upon launching this program is that there is inadequate charging infrastructure in Eastern Charlotte in order to support the full use of it in Blacks Harbor. So we're still working out those kinks. But we were able to receive some funding from the COA to install 2 level 2 power stations in our Freshmart property. So I'll get into that afterwards. So there are the main challenges, and I think this is what this week is for, is learning opportunities. So I'll be totally transparent with you. The main challenges that we had was related to insurance. That prolonged our launch date by 8 months, and being able to cover the cost of insurance, and then the lack of charging infrastructure as well. So behind the scenes, when you receive this funding, and when you imagine the initial project and all of that, there's always this sort of idealized idea of like, oh, this is exactly how it'll roll out, and then there's the reality of how it rolls out. So there's still lots of things that we're working through, but we were able to do really wonderful things with this car share project. For instance, for the Charlotte County Fall Fair, there's a really great group in St. Stephen called Neighborhood Works, which is like a social service and community hub who works a lot with the unsheltered population and the low income population. And we were able to provide these vehicles in kind to get 40 people to the Charlotte County Fall Fair who had never been there before, working directly with the Rural Resiliency Group, which comes out of Public Safety Branch in New Brunswick. And we were also able to do other types of volunteer services as well. For instance, we're having clients from the Johns Hopkins Society be able to use the vehicles to drive unsheltered population to important appointments that they have in Moncton and Fredericton and St. John. We've also seen a big uptick in the newcomer population. So we have agreements with the Multicultural Association for individuals, because oftentimes newcomers don't have the credit required to buy a vehicle. They don't have the money in the bank to buy the vehicle, the maintenance costs, all of those things. So they're able to use our vehicles. I think there was a story of one woman who her husband required a lot of like optometry appointments, all this stuff, and they had been struggling and putting it off for months to be able to access the doctor in St. John. And she signed up for the program through the Multicultural Association, because we have an MOU with them and we have a process with them for intake. And she was able to do all of that. So there are little success stories along the way, but we're still learning every day how to improve the service. But ultimately, I believe that we'll start to see more and more uptake just as the months go on. One other thing we've been doing is doing more one-on-one engagements. So doing coffee chats in cafes, doing more direct kind of engagement with our municipal offices, etc. So lots on the go with the car share. Did anybody have any questions specifically about that before I moved on to something else? No?
I guess I'm curious how many riders you need to make it fully sustainable, or an income generating model, or if that's the goal even.
Well, yeah, so this is sort of like a social enterprise based model. So the idea is to have enough to cover operational costs long term. I believe it's 50 members, 50 full-time year-long memberships in order to cover the costs of operations, which is totally achievable goal. And then something to the effect of like 200 users annually that are able to, but I'd have to check in on those numbers for you, Julia. I haven't looked at them in a little while.
Thanks. We
Yeah,
ran a car share pilot here in Sackville with EOS, and yeah, and it was a good pilot, but the insurance was crazy. We ended up partnering with Enterprise to try to make it happen.
Yeah. How did you find that?
It was, I think it worked pretty well, except for a pilot period. We didn't get the ridership probably we needed, but I think similarly, we're not known as early adopters in New Brunswick, especially for matters of transportation, which is really attached to people's livelihoods and switching your habits over. So yeah, I think if it had been longer term, it could have easily been quite successful.
Yeah, definitely. Can I ask what cars you use for the pilot portion? Like, how did that?
I feel like Amanda might be able to give you some of the better specs on that, but we can speak to that afterwards, perhaps.
Okay,
How
cool,
does that sound?
cool. Yeah,
Okay.
sure, that sounds good. Sorry, I have questions.
Oh, don't worry. We all have questions for each other.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll move on. Food security. Okay, so our community health needs reports from 2016 indicates that Eastern Charlotte is 25% food insecure, I believe, and even substantially more so in our community school programs. So for children to be able to access food, and when we say food, we mean like fresh, nutritious produce year-round kind of access. Pardon me. So we actually have been working with Vibrant Community Charlotte County. They had an informal food security group going for quite some time, and that was with local food service providers, so food banks, so St. Georgian Area Food Bank, the Vocational Center with St. Stephen, Neighborhood Works in St. Stephen as well as community food coordinators. So those are the individuals that work at the local schools. So we have been in direct contact and kind of using their data and their understanding of what's going on with food security to be able to inform what our next project is. So that's on we do have a food security problem in Eastern Charlotte and in Southwest New Brunswick, and I would even dare to say in all of New Brunswick as a whole. Only 8% of our food that we create here in New Brunswick, we consume in New Brunswick. So that is very problematic because we're hyper reliant on imports. And of course, there's all kinds of different climate impacts that come with that. There's also some, disruptive things that happen, whether it's ship blocks the Suez Canal or COVID-19 takes over. So there's issues related to food security as a province whole, and then there is some as well regionally. Here in Blacks Harbor, we do have a convenience store that was kind of retrofitted into a temporary like market kind of situation, and they do have some really good food options there, but in terms of like a full holistic plate of different food options in our region, we're quite limited, especially since the grocery store that we ended up purchasing closed in 2018. So there isn't the closest actual grocery store in for residents of Blacks Harbor is 25 kilometers away in St. George. So this has been a project that's been in the works since 2020. We initially started conversations. We hadn't acquired the old grocery store. We didn't acquire that until April 2021. And a lot of what we wanted to understand was controlled environment agriculture. So we had a working relationship with University of New Brunswick. Dr. Terry Chopin has a lab there, and he had a master's student who was working specifically on alternative food options in a controlled environment space, looking at media beds and other types of fish effluent and aquaponics was specifically what he was looking at. So we started working with him and discussing the opportunities, and we knew we wanted eventually buy the grocery store because it is a community asset. It is centrally located here in Blacks Harbor. It's 8,000 square feet. It is, it's got like 3.14 acres of space, lots of opportunity for growth and development. And at that time when we had bought it, it was being used as a storage facility. So we wanted to see if we could repurpose it. And I'm happy to announce that as of Christmas this year, we're working on it. So, well, we've been working on it. But so yeah, like I said, we're in a food desert. There's a food insecurity rates. So this is in 2021, so I'd become executive director for 2.5 weeks. We were in the middle of buying the Fresh Mart. And so the Fresh Mart property, yeah, we bought it, like I said, in May 2021. And at that time, knowing that we had this goal and this sort of idyllic dream of like turning it into a hydroponic farm, we put the full brakes on. So I worked for 8 months with a group or an engineering firm called Swanson's, which is out of St. Andrews, to ensure that we really had a full scope technical understanding of what the building would require in order to be retrofitted and renovated into what we wanted it to be. So that's everything from electrical carrying load, HVAC systems, plumbing necessities, all of the different construction requirements, carpentry requirements. What could we do to possibly create it into a energy efficient sort of building as well? So looking at different types of alternative energy sources as well. So we worked with not only Swanson's, but other like electrical engineering companies like RSEI out of Fredericton. And no one became more acquainted with engineering talk than me and my operations manager in a very short 8-month period of time. So basically we have plans coming out of the gang, like they're everywhere. So that's really, really great. And that provided us this understanding, then we could start doing costing. So you don't just buy a building and then think that, it'll just turn into what you want it to be tomorrow. You have to do a pro forma budget. You got to understand where that money is going to come from, et cetera. So that's basically what we've been spending the last 1.5 years doing. So we actually have, I wonder, oh no, okay, didn't make the transfer, I guess. Anyway, so we have a microbiology lab here at ECW. It is something that has functioned as our social enterprise since like the early 2000s. It brings in a considerable amount of money for the organization. We have a large contract with Environment and Climate Change Canada. We do drinking water samples for the public. We're also we're entering into contracts soon with municipal drinking water. So we're working on kind of creating more and more within our lab. That lab facility is at the building I'm currently at, which we own, which is our main office space at 350 square feet in the basement, down where all of our boats and trucks are. And we are moving the front half, we are moving that particular lab into the front half of this building here. So as you can see right there, so we're taking our microbiology lab from 350 square feet to 1,300 square feet, moving it into the front portion of the Fresh Mart property. And that work is very much almost completed. So we were working with contractors to put up walls, put up the new HVAC systems being installed as I'm talking to you today. All of the plumbing was done, the flooring was laid, new windows were replaced in the front half of the building. So that the lab space has kind of been completed, and we want it to do in the back half. Like I said, it's 8,000 square feet. So it's approximately 6,000 square feet in the back half. And it was previously a grocery store. So if you look at these designs here, there is a large distribution door here with a ramp because it was previously a grocery store. So that is perfect loading zone and receiving area, and the whole living lab and controlled environment agriculture. So we call it like the living lab and indoor farm. The whole space has been designed as though it's a food system. So when we think about food systems, we often think about, seedlings and harvesting and food production. But it being an old grocery store, we have the capacity to think about storage and distribution and packaging and having it as like a food hub. So we designed it as though it was a food hub. You have a full food flow here. These are the two primary agricultural zones. This work is actually just ongoing now too. So this is the first grow room. They're about 10,000 450 square feet. And this is a secondary room I'll get into in the next slides as to what we're doing in these rooms. But the nice thing is that we have a full 450 square foot cooler. So we've been working as well with our local food banks and other food service providers who have access requirements for storage and all of that as well. So we're like creating an inventory system to be able to put in their access food that they require for their cooler systems, and then ultimately working with Vibrant Community Charlotte County in their food coordinator role to create sort of a distribution system for food banks to be able to access our food specific storage, because it is an old grocery store. We also have a cold room here. This is the hydroponic shops in the workspace. And then this is where the staff is in the back here and all of that. So basically we've been working with, this is Brian and Terry. I'm actually headed up to UNB right after this call to talk with them. They were able to grow in their small lab space at UNB about 15 different types of produce, using all different types of controlled environment agriculture techniques. So what we're doing is we have had Brian on retainer as our technical expert, and he's been providing us technical oversight into how our farm is going to kind of pan out. And we have an agreement with Petal right now to hire him come April 1st. So he is able to come in and fully start with the creation of this, which is our first grow room. So we just received notice before Christmas that we received funding from Agri-Food and Agriculture Canada. And I can say this, but the press release will be going out next week. So I don't know, you can post this video whenever though, I suppose. So yeah, we put in something for the local food infrastructure fund to create an initial grow room. So that one I just showed you, 50 vertical hydroponic towers and seed production space. So our estimates are, and we've been working as well on the technical working plan in the business plan for this, and our expectations are that we're going to start with just 6 very basic crop items. So 2 different types of lettuce, arugula, kale, basil, and cilantro. And we will be ordering the towers probably in June of this year. And then once they're installed, ensuring that we can kind of create a grow plan. So Brian will be working on a grow plan, or is working on a grow plan, but in our first year of production, we hope to be able to have a harvest by like October. That's always the ideal goals. I'm always so tentative to put dates on anything anymore. But the idea is to have consistent year-round production of food. And we want to be able to sell it directly to the public, as well as provide it subsidized to those groups that I had mentioned before, food banks, as well as food service providers like community kitchens, like Neighborhood Works does do community dinners, and then to our local schools as well. So that was really exciting. We've been also working directly with the, so actually, I think originally when Julia asked me to do this presentation, she asked me to talk maybe about how I get through, like, what did you call it? The flaming hoops of bureaucracy, something like
Yes,
that.
how you jump through the flaming hoops of bureaucracy, especially around renewable energy, I think, and those sorts of subsidies for.
Totally. So
I'm glad you remember my exact words.
Yeah, so this building is actually going to run totally on geothermal. And we just found out, so we're still bringing it out with the feds and stuff, but yeah, so it's coming in place. I'm just not, unfortunately, allowed to share a lot of things. But so basically, this is hilarious. The Department of Agriculture, Aquaculture, and Fisheries here in New Brunswick, we've been having this conversation with them probably for about 2.5 years now. And we started to kind of take other departments on, like, we started reaching out more to other departments to kind of get them on side. So I started with Regional Development Corporation. Then we moved on to ACOA. We also had discussions with Opportunities New Brunswick, with Petal. I met with Minister Holder, Minister Johnson from Agriculture came down actually and sat with us, as well as 2 deputy ministers from Petal. We gave them the full scope design. We took them to the building. We went through admittedly in a much more formal and prepared way than what I am right now. The full idea, the full scope. Brian was there. Several of our community partners were there, and we showed them the whole plan. And then we also met with some other ministers as well. And we started to meet more frequently with project officers. And I think it was really amazing because, so I have a policy background personally, but I think when you start to kind of see the silos of government come and fall around you, and then we started to see they were setting up meetings with 7 to 8 different departments and inviting us to those meetings to give project updates. Like, for instance, I've got one at the end of the month, and we've been having bi-monthly meetings of like, this is what's happening, this is where a roadblock is, who can help us with this, what do we need to do to kind of be able to quell these concerns that you have, what's your expertise? So our agriculture person has been working with their agriculture people to ensure that that technical portion of the farm is looking good, right? So there's only so much I can do. I'm not an agricultural person, but we have the right, you delegate those opportunities to the right technical experts, and then you match them well with the people in the government departments who want to support this thing to happen. They wanted us to visit farms. Local Biata in Moncton is one, and there was another group in Sussex that we visited. We also went up to CCMB Innov, which is a large sort of college research center in the northern portion of the province. And we started talking to them about using this as a flexible space to accommodate multiple types of controlled environment agriculture. Can you bring down some of your PhD students, your master's students to do research and development design in this secondary room? Would you be willing to do creative partnerships? So a lot of that started happening. And frankly, I'm not even entirely sure if I can say definitively why. I think a lot of tenaciousness, I think a lot of that back end kind of full scoping of that systems design kind of idea was really important, being like, okay, we're considering these things, and we want to have and this is the budget for this, and this is what the design looks like this, and this is what it could look like in 5 years. But we were co-shaping that not only with our community groups through those community conversations, but also with government. So that was really, and it has been, especially for the farm project, it's been really amazing to watch. I don't know if anybody has ideas about that or questions about it. Does Mark have, or does Eric have questions? Do you want me to answer them?
Did you see that there, Brianna?
Yep.
I mean, it's very impressive. And I'll summarize my question. Very
Sure.
impressive projects. And commend you for that. I mean, you've been at it a while, and that's part of it. But I think that the real genius behind this is more who ECW is and its vision and how it operates its business. It's how it's managed and things like that, because you've developed great reputation and great community.
Thank God.
And, yes, exactly. And that's worth a lot. And you've created a pool of resources. I mean, your budget is incredible for the amount of money that you've made in profit over those years. So that means that you're different than many organizations, particularly environmental organizations, that just go from grant to grant to grant. You've got into the business development for your work, and that takes you into another field, and that gives you respect with government. Government loves people like this, because that's the people that they understand in the business community. But I suspect that you've done that very intentionally, and you've got some really good relationships. So you are independent charity, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we are
Right?
a CRA registered charity. Yeah.
What's your relationship with your formal relationship with the municipalities?
Yeah, that's a great question, Eric. I just want to make one comment on something that you said before. Government does love a business-minded angle to it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Government does not understand what a social enterprise is.
Exactly.
100%. So that has certainly been the, I mean, that was a blanketed statement. There are lots of brilliant people working at government departments that I get to be fortunate to work with. However, I think it became very apparent to me when we started doing the financial projections for the farm and discussing, like, our cost revenue projections and kind of cross comparing that to our expenses, et cetera. So the farm, theoretically, if you don't think of it as the whole building envelope of like our lab, which brings in revenue annually, generally generates a surplus for us, and that we reinvest back into the organization. The farm doesn't run in the green or in the black for a couple of years as we work at those things. So but our full building envelope does, right? Because we have the capacity to have those offsets and to use it more strategically with that. But when I was talking, and to me, the farm, and this is the way we presented to government as well, the farm at 1,000 square feet for the primary growing room and understanding what the revenue and the product production of that could be, that is a total scalable thing. 1,000 square feet for us, because we're a nonprofit, so we're not interested in making money, but Cook Aquaculture or the Cook Aquaculture of the farming industry, they can buy a $40,000 square foot or 40,000 square foot building, and they'll know, I can tell them per square foot that I put into that, and they'll know how much 1,000 square foot produces at the end. And to me, that's where the value is in the industry for government. But that's not my interest. My interest is to generate enough money to cover the costs, to pay people well, and to give subsidized food. But when I explained this to the financial people at DAF, it took us 8 months. It took us 8 months. And not because they're not dumb, they're smart people, but it's just the concept of what that means. It's changing. It's definitely changing. Like I see it more and more in conversations. But yeah, anyway, and my formal relationship with municipalities, oh, they're great. We love our municipalities. It really started initially, I think, with a lot of the climate change work that we did. So they would get ETF grants, or we would help them write ETF grants. Or, for instance, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is where we got the big money for the Regional Climate Adaptation Plan. And that was the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission got that. And they contracted us out. So there is a portion of it that we get subcontracted out for certain services. And then on the flip side of that is our working relationship with municipalities is also being able to have things like securing parking space,
right?
Or the village of Grand Manan wanting a car over there because we hadn't considered them at that time because we only, we had what we had at that moment. Or going into grant applications with them, helping them to create grant applications, things like that. So I think I'm flattered by what you said.
But
yeah,
they're not on your board. You're completely independent. You just collaborate.
Nope. My board, I have a member of the Basket-and-Magadi First Nation sitting on my board. I have a junior planner for the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission. I have Vibrant Communities Executive Director sitting on my board. I have members from Atlantic Salmon Federation, all nonprofit people or retirees. I don't have any board members that are on council.
Good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. It's nearing the end of the hour. So
I was about to note that, but also there's just so much. I'm very excited to keep going.
Yeah, I might not get into the housing if that's okay. I mean, I could for a minute, I suppose. But yeah, this is our goals for the next little while. And it's certainly becoming more and more of a reality. And I think honestly, just utter tenaciousness. Like I have a really brilliant team who puts up with a lot ongoing. So housing, this is a bit of the kicker. So when I became ED in 2021, we had already been provided in kind to the village of Wax Harbor a piece of property on Lewis Connors Drive, which is about 7.5 acres. It's just up the road from us in our offices here. And it was with the intention of building affordable housing units because that was a part of the Project Village initiative at that time. So I worked for the first couple of months as executive director. We hired a project manager and him and I worked on the housing designs with an architecture firm out of St. John. We worked directly with Kit Hickey from Housing Alternative Inc. The housing portion of Project Village is still very much a part of the larger idea and concept of Project Village, but we had to spin it off, and we always knew we had to. We spun off a new nonprofit. So we have Project Village Housing Inc. that has a separate board of directors, that has the project manager who started on the project and grew the project here at ECW. He is now the the director of operations for that. So they have been working on that. And the reason why we did that is because it's quite possible, and we have with these conversations with CRA and with others, to have your charitable purposes look at justifying electric vehicles to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, or creating an indoor vertical farm with a geothermal portion to create, and that's like a climate thing. The housing, and this was a lot of conversations that I had to have with a charitable lawyer, the housing is a harder sell within our charitable purposes. So we always knew we had to spin it off. We just spun it off much quicker than what we had anticipated. So it's still ongoing. We still have meetings with them. It's still very much happening. They're acquiring others. I'm very mindful to speak directly to it because I'm no longer the direct kind of representative of it, but it's still attached to the hip. We share, some board members are shared across. So the housing is still very much going on. And I think I'm going to conclude, if that's okay. Good luck on putting this up on YouTube. My God, it's quite sporadic.
That's amazing and quite astonishing that much work is going on. And I'm very curious. Today we were talking about like how many people know about what's happening with Project Village, and I'm really glad that you took this opportunity to talk with us so that we can also like spread the word about the opportunities here. And I guess I'm a bit curious, just before we check out. Yeah, I would love to know like lessons learned or advice you would have for other people trying to tackle rural sustainability, let alone these really dynamic, transformative systems change pieces in the face of climate change. Yeah, if you have any advice or any final words for climate change solutions to sign off with.
What a great question. I don't know if you want my response from like an individual perspective, which is don't become ED and then 2 weeks later have all this stuff going on as you're also trying to adjust to like how this organization runs from that perspective and other things. So that certainly will definitely take you through a bit of an emotional roller coaster. But I think for me personally, and when I think about ECW as an organization and, you know, the staff and the people who show up and work here, I think it's pretty clear that there will be lots of setbacks, that there will be lots of moments in government conversations or even in community-based conversations where it won't necessarily hit the way that you wanted it to hit, or it won't sell the way you wanted it to sell. And my biggest lesson learned so far has been not to be dismayed by that, or not even to think of that as a direct criticism, but to pivot and have the adaptive capacity as an organization and as people working on these projects, much like climate change adaptation, right? The adaptive capacity and the resilience of an organization and the resilience of a community and the resilience of us to a changing climate is really dependent upon our ability to pivot and adapt to these changes. So I would say that there are times where you definitely don't think you're going to hit it or it's not going to get there. And I'm really fortunate to be in this place where through a lot of tenaciousness, and don't get me wrong, there were definitely some times where things got a little chirpy, but ultimately I think like don't allow setback to be perceived as failure, and talk to a lot of people, There's so many groups doing things similar to this all over Canada, all over everywhere. Like you have to, you know, just talk to a lot of people. Yeah.
Briana, there's also something, and I want to go back to the comment that I made. There's also something in what you just said that you really depended upon good management too. Like to run the things efficiently is really important because your margins are not very great. You know, you're not in a lucrative business here, but every time you're trying to make a little bit of more money to put aside for this longer term. So you've got to have qualified people, professionally trained to do these things. I mean, there's a lot of components to what you've been able to achieve, and it hasn't been instantaneous either. I mean, you started with an ACAP program, and that must be 25 years ago, wasn't it? At least.
Yeah,
1993.
Yeah, it's I'm turning 30 this year. It's ECW's 30th birthday. We're all
There
going to
you go.
celebrate together. Yeah, I think, you know what, Eric, it would be wrong of me not to say that the things that we're able to do now in 2023 is a 100% reflective of a legacy of people who did ECW well since 1993, especially the previous executive director here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're able to do a lot of what we are able to do now because of good decisions they made. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you again for joining us and for an epic amount of information. I really encourage people to go visit projectvillage.ca. There's so much information, but also a really beautiful framework of the pillars that they're using. And thank you again for joining us for Care Week. And thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Happy Climate Change Week. Take care.